welcome to Moments with the Master for this 15th day of February 2021. I am the Egg Friar, Father Josh, pastor at St. Martin's Celtic Catholic Church. Brother Chris and I, schedules are weird, and he has a particularly odd schedule, and so it's just been difficult for us to sync up and be able to record together. So hopefully we'll be able to work this out at some point. But in the meantime, I'm going to record alone. I am going to be talking about the readings from the last Sunday of Epiphany, which just happened to fall on Valentine's Day. But they are Deuteronomy chapter 5, verses 12 through 15, Psalm chapter 81, verses 1 through 7, 2 Corinthians 4, 5 through 11, and Mark chapter 2, verses 23 through chapter 3, verse 6. Always encourage you to read all those passages for yourself. I'm going to read the Old Testament passage, and then I'll allude to the gospel as well. Deuteronomy chapter 5, Moses said to the people of Israel, "Thus says the Lord, observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy, as the Lord your God commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. In it you shall not do any work, you or your son, or your daughter, or your manservant, or your maidservant, or your ox, or your ass, or any of your cattle, or the sojourner who is within your gates, that your manservant and your maidservant may rest as well as you. You shall remember that you were a servant in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you thence with a mighty hand and outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord your God commanded you to keep the Sabbath day." So, when you look at the gospel passage, you have this story, this event, where Jesus and the disciples are walking through a grain field. The disciples are hungry, so they pluck some heads of grain and they basically they get the husk off, blow it away so they can eat the kernels on the inside. The Pharisees get really bent out of shape about that because it breaks their made-up rules. The Torah does not in any way stop people from doing that. That was a made-up rule. And then Jesus goes into the synagogue, basically is set up by the Pharisees. They bring a man with a withered hand. Some translations talk about palsy, but anyway, his hand is messed up, which would have been, for a variety of reasons, would have been a really, really bad thing in that culture. And Jesus heals the man. But he does make this statement there. He says, "Man, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath." In fact, let me just jump down. He talks about how David took the showbread from the tabernacle to eat because he was hungry, breaking God's commandments, but that his need superseded that commandment. He says on the healing, "Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to harm, to save a life or to kill?" When he finishes, the Pharisees are so mad. That is when they decide they're going to kill him. And they actually plot with the Herodians, which is really funny because those were not religious Jews. The Herodians were Jews nationally. They were Jews by birth, but not by religion. And so the Pharisees normally would have had absolutely nothing to do with them. And yet, here they go. So here's the question. What does it mean to keep the Sabbath day holy? Years ago, I was interviewing at a church, and I remember I'm sitting there, and the one of the guys on the committee that was interviewing me, I was interviewing to be a youth pastor, and one of the guys on the committee asked me, because the church that I was interviewing with was planning to start a second service, and so he asked me, "What kind of service do you think we ought to do?" And I'm like, "You're hiring me to be the youth pastor. Why are you asking me this question? However, here's, what kind of service do you have right now?" And he's like, "Well, it's traditional." And I said, "Well, common knowledge is that whatever service you had that got you to the point where you needed to start a second service, that's the kind of service you should do." And I said, "But if you're asking me if you should do a contemporary service, you could do that too. In fact, that might be something you do on Saturday night for like a lot of younger families prefer a Saturday night service because they've got things to do on Sunday, and then sometimes that suits them better, and you might be able to reach a whole different group of people. And the guy's like, well, we can't do that because God tells us to worship on the Sabbath. And I was like, you do know the Sabbath is Saturday, right? I didn't say that out loud, but he was an idiot. But this is the point. What does it mean? So we have imbued this idea. So let's back way up to the creation. God rests on the seventh day. He creates the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day, he rests. And then in the Torah, he tells his people to rest on the Sabbath, on the seventh day, and not just them, but they are to let everybody rest. Let the animals rest, let the slaves rest, servants, everybody gets a day off on the Sabbath. Interestingly, physiologically, we are actually made to need that. I can tell you from experience, because when I was in Afghanistan, I went the better part of a year without taking a day off. I did not get a Sabbath because we were in an active combat zone, and it really messed with me. I mean, really messed with me. There is, you have a physiological need, and I think God built that into us as part of just who we are. He wants us to rest. So the question is, does that mean go to church? Now, I've heard in some translations say that you should rest from your normal work. So is it okay to do other work on the Sabbath? So is it a day of rest if you show up at church at 6 o'clock on Sunday morning to help set up for the worship service, and then you're doing that all morning long, and you're in the choir and you do whatever, and then you've got a meeting in the afternoon, and then you stay for Sunday night church, and you're literally at church from 6 or 7 a.m. till 6 or 7 p.m. Is that really rest? Is that what that means? I don't know. I don't know a lot of things, and I don't know the answer to this. I have really struggled with this, especially as I've been preaching through, and I preached that passage, and I asked this question: what does it mean to rest? Because Jesus says the Sabbath is made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. So what does that mean? And I know that the church over the ages has said that the worship of God is part of our Sabbath, that coming to the Lord is part of that. But I'm not sure that trading one work and responsibility for another work and responsibility is exactly what God intended for us. I think that He intended for us to rest. And so, for me, Sunday has never been a restful day, or rarely. There have been some times where I wasn't working full-time for a church, but generally Sunday is not a restful day for me. And so for many years, Monday or Tuesday was the day that I made sure to do no work. And the reason I did it early in the week is because I knew if I did it on Friday that things would stack up during the week, and I would be super tempted to work on Fridays on the day. So I didn't take the Sabbath on the Sabbath. Of course, Sunday is not the Sabbath either. That's actually, to the Jews, it'd be Friday at sundown to Saturday at sundown. But I didn't even do that. So I think, first of all, the idea, it's the idea of Sabbath, the idea that we rest from our labor one of those days. But secondly, I think what's really important to remember is that Sabbath is a gift from God, not an onerous responsibility. And I think if you find yourself feeling like it's an onerous responsibility, then it's not Sabbath. And you should either back away or do something different. Now, here I am in Afghanistan. Here I am in Kuwait. I get every other Saturday sort of off. But I do take, we get Sundays. And Sundays I'm not expected to work for the Army. So this is what my Sunday looks like. I get up early, I go eat breakfast, I go rehearse the Catholic choir, and then I lead music for the Catholic service. Then I rehearse with the contemporary choir, and then I play guitar for the contemporary worship team. And at some point, because the guy that's leading it is going to be going home, I'll be taking that over. And then I get a very short break. I go to the gospel service because I love it. And I get to preach there periodically. I love preaching. And then I have a couple hours break, and then I rehearse with the traditional ensemble. I don't lead that, I just play with them. And sometimes I preach for that service as well. And then I play for that service. And then I go and sit in a recliner and goof off for a little bit. And then I go to bed. And people talk to me and they're like, holy crap, that's a lot. You're doing a lot. Well, I enjoy it. I mean, I really do. I love doing music. I love playing. It's tiring. It's exhausting. But for me, it's exhausting like going and playing ultimate frisbee for a couple of hours would be. That's something I would do on a Sabbath, or whatever. So for me, it's not work. It's a joy. It's a pleasure, and I get to spend time with God's people all day long, and that's kind of cool too. So for me, that's Sabbath. I don't know what it is for you, but do it. And finish with a story. Back a ways, I was a youth pastor, student pastor at a church in Charleston, and one of my students, she got a job at a grocery store, and she helped me on Sunday nights with, she was like an intern. She helped me with the youth service, but when she started working, they told her, we need you to work on Sundays. And so she missed a couple of weeks, and so I sat down with her and I said, look, here's the deal. God tells you to take a Sabbath. And I was like, so what's going on? She's like, well, I really need the money and all this stuff. And I said, well, here's the deal. God commands us to take a Sabbath. For you, because you've got school during the week, really Sunday is going to have to is that Sabbath day for you. So here's what I'd like you to consider. Telling them you cannot work or will not work on Sundays, because that is a day that is reserved for the Lord. And because God commands it, and here's what I know. That when we obey the Lord, He blesses that. Now, I don't know how He's going to bless that, but I promise you, if you will obey and take your Sabbath, God will bless you for it, for your obedience. So she did. She actually listened to me. She did. She went back. She said, I cannot work on Sundays anymore. And she was actually willing to give up the job for that, but she said, I can't do it. And so they took her